Learning from current events to level up your strategic thinking. Why is it important? Most people consume the news, whatever media that they are subscribed to, and what they do is, unfortunately, consume, react, and then forget. We don't really get the opportunity to sort of synthesize the information that we're receiving and that we're consuming. And what I really want to do here for the new year is to bring my analysis of the political and media space from my commentary channel and also my systems thinking and AI research background to help do this with you and show you how to do it for your brand, for your communications to really level up your strategic thinking. I do have a background in public relations. I've been in public relations comms for more than 20 years, and I'm a chartered public relations practitioner. So, this is my new goal to synthesize myself. Not me specifically, exactly, but to synthesize my worlds of my analysis and then how I sort of facilitate a space where we can learn together and grow together for our creation, whether it's content here on other platforms or for your brand communications. I think what's helpful when we are engaging with current events, instead of asking the regular questions, such as what's happened, who is right and who is wrong, and how do I feel, we need to approach it differently. Otherwise, we're not able to appreciate the complexity and actually take on board the complexity. Instead, what we really want to do is dig deeper and we want to look at the current event and ask what is being revealed about a system or multiple systems and how they work. What is being revealed? Are there any patterns that are taking place? If so, what are they? And what can then what can I then learn um, about these patterns, about these systems, and how I would apply that knowledge elsewhere in understanding or even for my decision making, for how I execute. What this does is you sort of start with your surface, your sort of facts. Um, we've got the five W's in the age for those who are in journalism or comms, PR, copywriting, marketing, etc. You've got to answer the who, what, why, when, where, how. Who, what, why, when, where, how. That's right. Said it so quickly. So you just got to grasp the facts, and then you want to start looking at patterns, and that really helps you with the sort of strategy bit and to understand, oh, who's incentivized, who's motivated, and why. What for. And then we get to the point of, oh, okay, so I've understood what's going on here and what I can transfer to my other domains. So that's the bit that comes in, the principle bit. In principle, what have you appreciated from it? And I think if we sort of broke down understanding current events in this way, then I think our dinner table conversations and just sort of conversations generally would be much more interesting. So you could therefore look at current events in sort of five steps if you wanted to apply this framework. So first, yes, you want to establish what's the context here. You'll want to sort of understand the background because there's always background. There's something historically that's going on. And then you want to look at what are the systems, what are the structures involved. I would even add sort of who are the stakeholders. Actually, maybe I'll come to the stakeholders bit next. But what are the systems and what are the structures? And then you want to look at potential pressures, pain points, any sort of acute spots of stress. Are any of those building up? So once you've established that context, then actually it's better to look at your stakeholders. So who are the players in this game and what does each one of them want? It's just an absolute disaster. I've got a hot cup of tea, a mug of tea. I'm just sitting there. Let me take a sip. Who are the players and what does each one of them want? And then do they have any kind of interests that might sort of conflict and sort of not complement? You've got not complementing and then like all the way to sort of conflicting with one another. And then you look at the players and question what their proximity is to power, who actually has the most power in the situation. And then we get to like a stage 3, and you want to look at the mechanisms taking place. So, are there any sort of economic incentives going on? Any economic drives, any economic motivations? Um, I have a lot of my time is spent on looking at digital communication. So you want to look at algorithmic systems. What are the algorithmic systems that are sort of taking place? And what are the power imbalances? Is always helpful when you're looking at sort of current affairs or conflicts and see who has the most proximity to power. And then are there any sort of dynamics in terms of attention? Who holds the most attention? Who grabs the most attention? So we've done sort of the initial sort of 3 stages, if you like. We've established the context, we've looked at the players, the stakeholders involved, and now what we've done is we've identified some mechanisms. Now you want to look at patterns, which is fun because then you'll start seeing them everywhere. Your questioning, inquisitive, curious mind will start to get more answers. Have you seen these patterns before? Have they existed before? Um, and if these patterns have existed before, they've occurred before, what have been the underlying principles for each of those patterns? And then can you sort of almost fit it into a category? Or can you, I mean, you'll begin to sort of join dots. You'll start to think, oh, so if I sort of rewind a little bit and I look at my stakeholder map and I look at all the players, ah, that sort of principle kind of occurs more with that player over there or with that mechanism over there. And the last stage is you want to then apply this lesson, you want to apply this learning because what do we do all of this for? And what you're going to do is you'll be able to sort of spot the same sort of emergence in other situations. And you'll be able to sort of apply this to other domains. And then you could potentially alter your strategy and your approach, which is just the most fascinating part because what you're doing now is you're not just taking things on face value and you're really getting into the kind of critical thinking zone, which I just absolutely love, but you're just constantly synthesizing. So you can, for instance, look at the way platforms change their policies. You could look at their context, any sort of regulatory scrutiny that they're facing, creator sort of satisfaction declining if the growth of a platform is stalling. You could look at sort of the sale of ownership, like TikTok, for instance. You could look at the stakeholders in that sort of example, whether there is any sort of growth, compliance issues, ad revenue when it comes to sort of the platform, advertisers, of course, and any sort of regulator accountability. And when we look at mechanisms for an example like this, um, you've got sort of advertising, so that's the economic side of things. You've got sort of engagement and those kinds of metrics, and that's all got to do with algorithms. And definitely, like in terms of power, you've got platform controlling distribution and what their policies are there, and the kind of perhaps rigid guidelines there may be or not so rigid. You'll begin to start to spot patterns. And then this could diversify your strategy. You could start watching for any kind of signals. You could start to anticipate more. Um, and this matters because when you can begin to contextualize things, look at the players, look at the mechanisms, and start to practice pattern recognition, you'll be able to sort of anticipate and foresee what's coming. And that way, for instance, with reputation management, that's everything for you to be able to anticipate things, especially if you've already identified what your risks are. You can also transfer your insights to other domains, other areas of your brand or business, or for different clients. And this kind of principled critical thinking, it's not just asking why, but it's like what is going on? Let's like look at this entire picture. In systems thinking, we do this thing where we learn about sort of rich pictures, and I love rich pictures, and you may have seen these. A lot of people in branding, storytelling, marketing, etc., they use rich pictures, but we also use it in systems thinking, in sort of strategic problem solving. And a rich picture will basically capture through imagery and animation and sketches and patterns and drawings. Um, it'll take in the whole situation, the mechanisms, the context, the players, and it really, it literally, figuratively, it paints the picture. And you want to do that for yourself almost, sort of through this sort of mental process. And this has sort of a compounding effect, in my opinion, which is why I like to share this content over here, because you are then training your brain to synthesize in this way, to analyze in a much more interesting way. And then it just means that if you are building a brand, if you are building a business, if you care about your sort of reputation management, then you are much faster at spotting signals, at spotting risks, and it will work in your favor. And you'll make much better strategic decisions. In fact, you'll be much more proactive rather than sort of reacting, especially if there's like a cancellation going on and there's a reputational management risk. So, what I really want to do in this new year is I want to look at this sort of process of thinking and apply it to algorithm changes, looking at AI and the development of it, looking at sort of political campaign strategies, since that's, takes up a lot of my work as well. Any sort of digital media controversies that we can learn from. Regulatory developments will always impact us as digital communicators. Shifts in the creator economy will always impact us. Um, Misinformation is just, the dynamics are just very active, so always that. Any real-time current events that could provide us with sort of really useful, impactful learning. So if you are ready for this new year of content, then please do subscribe for more of the same and this. So does that make sense? More of what I've already been providing and this. And please do comment if you would like me to analyze any event or story and to sort of bring the learnings to this space, and I have set up a Discord chat called Serena's Playbook because I would, this year for 2026, like to come together in community in a regular Zoom strategic discussion about events or one event or an essay or a piece of research or anything really. Like, the Discord chat will be for this, for us to determine what we're going to look at, what we're going to discuss, and we come together on a Zoom, and it can be audio only, completely up to the members, and we'll do this as a collective and collaboratively to really level up our strategic thinking so we can apply to all our domains. So please do subscribe and find me on Discord. That's Serena's Playbook. Other than that, it's been absolutely wonderful to have your time and attention here. I have multiple channels, but you knew that already. More information is available in the description of this video. I hope you're well and you have a wonderful year ahead with me, and I'll see you in the next one.